The full release of Hades 2 is finally available, giving us a chance to experience the story in its entirety. As expected, I had a blast. I have my minor nitpicks and gripes about the balance changes, but really, I'm just salty about losing my favorite builds. Nothing will ever replace Aspect of Arthur or Triple Nuke Adamant Rail. But what stuck with me in the days following my last run is the game's story, the greater scope and context it gives us for the world of Hades. The definition of gods and how their role in the world contrast with those above and below. I went into this game expecting Melinoe to be another wisecracking, good-natured heartthrob like Zagrias. But the differences in her upbringing have shaped so much of how she interacts with the world. Her plight is sympathetic, sure, but the more friends and foes you get to know, the more her values start to come into question. Melinoe lost her home and her family to Kronos, the Titan of Time, when she was but an infant. Her whole life has been spent in training to kill him, to seek revenge by any means necessary. Over the course of her adventures, she meets monsters, gods, mortals, titans, and many in between. But through it all, her devotion to the gods, to her mission of restoring the natural order, is unshakable. And yet, the same story doesn't deny that the gods are corrupt, and we come across several sympathetic characters that are victims of Olympus. I don't think a story is bad because its protagonists are morally gray. Practically everyone you meet in Disco Elysium has some level of disdain for you, and it's justified by their circumstances. Likewise, I don't think it's bad that Hades 2 characterizes the gods, including Melinoe, as a bit snooty and upper class. It's just that the way it's handled leaves a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. But we'll get there in time. For now, let's talk about Prometheus. As Melinoe travels up the mountainside of Olympus, she comes face to face with the Titan of Foresight. For the unaware, Greek myth tells us of Prometheus, a Titan that stuck around after the gods overthrew their predecessors. He was rather fond of humanity, being their creator in some interpretations, and would often side with them over the Olympians. In one instance, he tricked Zeus into accepting bones wrapped in fat as opposed to meat for sacrifices, letting mortals keep all the edible bits to themselves. But what finally pushed Olympus over the edge was his theft of fire, a hidden divine knowledge, allowing humans to cook their meat, light their houses, and keep warm in the winter. For daring to steal sacred secrets and give them to lowly mortals, Zeus had Prometheus chained to a rock and sent an eagle to tear into him, eating his liver. As an immortal, these wounds would heal back by the next day, whereupon the eagle would come again, and again, on like this for eternity. This story is followed pretty faithfully by Hades 2, and adds in the wrinkle that Prometheus can see the future, and knew that all of this would happen. He knew the exact punishment waiting for him if he chose to steal fire, and did so anyway. Not for his own personal gain, not in some conspiracy to topple the gods, but out of love for his creations.
Mortals live only to suffer. As I am responsible for that, I sought to take some of their suffering from them.
Every time you confront him on the mountainside, he elaborates on his reasoning, why he did what he did, why he chooses to fight. It never comes across as talking down to Melinoe. He respects her as a worthy adversary. He wants her to see what he sees, the cruelty and cowardice of the gods. And he's not wrong. While she fights her way through entire armies, Zeus and co remain in the safety of their palace, waiting for her to win, only to say, "Oh, I knew you could do it the whole time."
You gods coerced all mortal kind into worshipping you, and for what? You've nothing to gain by slaughtering them at your whim. Leave them be.
On the other hand, Melinoe is having none of it. She calls him a fraud, a thief, a traitor, and denies his false prophecies. I don't expect her to be kind to someone who's trying to kill her, But it's clear there's more to it than that. It's not, how could you side with Kronos? It's, why didn't you learn when we punished you?
Because they punished you for crimes you knowingly committed? What else could they have done after you deceived them and took from them?
And she responds to his defense of mortals with a seeming disdain for them, viewing them as ignorant and weak. You'd think, considering she has several shades as friends, she'd be a bit more willing to sympathize with him on this point, but like everything else he says, she just disregards it without ever actually refuting it. If it was only the Titan challenging her worldview, then it could be somewhat understandable. He's trying to kill her night after night. Doesn't really make one open to debate. But what then of Arachne, a weaver turned permanently into a spider after gloating of her victory over Athena? Sure, no one likes an obnoxious winner, but it's not worth ruining someone's life for all of eternity. Arachne shows nothing but kindness towards Melinoe, always willing to give her a new dress whenever she comes by, and provide whatever help she can. And yet, her curse hangs over your conversations, sometimes souring the relationship. She holds no ill will towards Melinoe being a goddess, but is put off by her working with the Olympians, the same ones responsible for her condition. While the princess can shrug off dissent from her enemies, she's not about to sit here and argue with her friend that she deserved it.
But the others, they didn't care. They were complicit in the whole thing. It was as though I was a spider to them all along.
Arachne, the gods could be kinder to mortals. You'll hear no argument from me on that. I have a certain point of view on it myself.
And, to her credit, Melinoe is willing to put her money where her mouth is. She seeks out Athena and pleads with her to undo what she's done to her friend. But her language stuck with me. She never calls out Athena as unjustified or unfair, merely that Arachne has learned her lesson. She can't bring herself to question authority. The final conversation of this questline has you summon Athena to remove the curse once and for all, but the goddess demands a high price. After all of this time, after all the humiliation and suffering she's been through, Arachne must apologize to Athena and admit that she was wrong. Even the story knows that this is utterly cruel, and Arachne can't bring herself that low. But all Melinoe can say in her friend's defense is,
Arachne, please, Lady Athena, she's upset and hasn't thought this through. I know how sorrowful she is.
no reprimand for Athena, no defense of someone she's known so much longer and so much more personally. Bringing it up later, Melinoe still dances around the topic, agreeing with Athena that Arachne had it coming. This is vile. Even at her angriest, Arachne never turned on Melinoe like this. Girl, what is wrong with you? We see a similar situation in the final steps of Dora's questline. Restoring the Shade's lost memories, we discover she is Pandora, the first woman, formerly married to Prometheus. On her wedding day, the gods gave her a pithos as a gift, but when she opened it, all the evils and ailments of the world spilled out, causing all of humanity's suffering from then on. In the original myths, this was to counterbalance mortals gaining fire, as further revenge for Prometheus' actions. While here, it's more ambiguous but implied to be the same. Whatever the case, Melinoe feels for her friend, and is there to comfort her when she finds out. But when it comes to acknowledging that the gods are at fault,
Dora, I just can't believe the gods set you up to curse all mortal kind. Is there any possibility your memory's at fault?
says it all right there. She would rather suggest that her friend is misremembering things than accept the unavoidable, undeniable evidence that the gods are not infallible, that they abuse their power over mortals, for no other sake than that they were destined to rule. She can gaslight herself that Arachne might have had it coming, but Pandora is not at fault in the slightest here. Her crime was marrying the brother of one of the gods' enemies, and now she has to live with the guilt for all eternity. From these 3 examples alone, it's clearly a big narrative theme in Hades 2, much more so than the first game. Melinoe's worldview that she's grown up with is challenged by these new experiences. She does push back, because you don't overcome your own biases overnight. But for this kind of character growth to happen, it needs to pay off. In an ideal ending to Hades 2, she should find a compromise between her own goals and those of Prometheus. A peace that is more amenable to the mortals and gods alike. So, getting into spoilers now, does it stick the landing? I have many problems with the ending of Hades 2, but specifically, I'm disappointed that so many of the conclusions we've been building to are either dropped entirely or resolved without Melinoe's input. Kronos isn't the best example of the Titans weren't all bad, but the endgame makes him emblematic of this concept. Zagrias, a far more empathetic character, has the chance to stop the Titan of Time once and for all, but sees something familiar. A bitter old man, feuding against his offspring due to stubbornness and ancient grudges. A vicious cycle he's had to deal with before, that no amount of violence was able to stop. They're immortals. They'll keep doing this song and dance forever, and everyone else will get dragged into it. So instead, Zagrias offers an olive branch, a chance to build a better life. Everything Kronos has done throughout the game has been for the sake of revenge against the gods, those who dethroned him, eviscerated him, imprisoned him for eternity. Zagrias knows that Kronos will do much the same to his own family, but doesn't let the cycle of revenge define his actions, his attitude towards his enemy. As he puts it,
And if you still think destroying Grandfather will make this ridiculous family's problems go away, then no wonder your fancy spell didn't quite work out.
it's a good lesson, but Melinoe doesn't learn it. Zagrias does. In a sequel that's told a larger story about the gods and their enemies, people who have legitimate reasons to hate them, the protagonist never seems to get the memo. Eventually, she's willing to work with Kronos, but only because Zagrias and Hades step in as the voices of reason. Hell, for as much of a stick in the mud as he was last game, Hades is one of the only characters who admits the gods had this coming, giving credit to Prometheus's grievances. It's fine to have the Olympians be pompous douchebags. That's source accurate. But never having Melinoe put the pieces together herself, it feels like something's missing. A character arc that's only half finished, leaving the happy ending to feel somewhat disturbing. The tyrants are back on top again. The closest we get to an actual resolution is the game's epilogue. The Fates, the three uber gods who dictate destiny, went missing early on, as Kronos trapped them in the void. Melinoe goes on a quest to find them, and gets the chance to hear their side of the story. People blame the Fates for every bad thing that happens, having dictated the gods must do this, or this can never come to pass. Tired of working a thankless job, they decide to pack it up and let free will assert itself. No more excuses, no more deflecting blame for being shitty rulers. And their last prediction is that one day, power will shift hands to the mortals. They'll be allowed to make their own decisions, govern their own lives. Fence-sitter Melinoe is shocked, and doesn't seem entirely supportive of the idea. The narrator even remarks that,
But others know that gods do not go quietly, and history repeats.
the game feels like it wants to make a grander point about the gods, those in power who look down upon the rest of the world. It's not even just mortals. A lot of dialogue across both games implies that the Olympians look down on chthonic gods like Melinoe. Zeus and Demeter are made out to be big threats in Hades 1 due to their unchecked tempers. But while Zagrias and Hades seem fully aware of this, Melinoe isn't. She has more sway than anyone, more interaction with mortals, more chances to learn and bring about change. And yet these moments where she could really grow and shine as a character are wasted, and all the lessons are learned by everyone else. When your player character is your means of experiencing the world, and the story never calls her out for her failings, it can almost seem like the game itself advocates for her position. If the creators wanted to make the point that the gods are no better than the titans and mortals that they fight, the ending just doesn't convey that message. At least, not to me.